Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Selamat siang dan salam sejahtera. Bapak, Ibu, tamu undangan kami hormati. Kami mengucapkan selamat mengikuti jalannya ujian promosi doktor bagi saudari Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi, SH, MA, Fakultas Hukum Universitas Gajah Mada pada hari ini 20 Juni 2021 secara daring. Acara ujian promosi doktor segera
Ketua Tim Penguji dengan buka ujian promosi doktor bagi dari Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi MA M.Phil. Pada yang terhormat, Liana Hasan PhD, silahkan.
Dan mengucap Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, ujian promosi doktor bagi saudari Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi, SH, MA, M.Phil dinyatakan
Nyanyikan lagu kebangsaan Indonesia Raya. Ujian promosi doktor. Terlebih dahulu, Ketua Tim Penguji perkenalkan para penguji, lanjutkan dengan pertanyaan-pertanyaan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan. Selamat sore Bapak Ibu dan hadirin yang saya manapun Anda berada. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Kehadirat Tuhan yang pada hari ini kita bisa bertemu. Suasana Indonesia juga masih mengesankan koknya semakin lama semakin naik, tetapi kegiatan akademik tetap berlangsung. Salah satunya adalah promosi doktor bagi Promovenda Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi SH MA M.Phil. Untuk itu izinkanlah saya sebagai chairperson semua penguji dan juga Promovenda mempergunakan bahasa Inggris dalam sesi Q&A. Dan ini dilakukan dengan pertimbangan bahwa Promovenda mengambil program Kotutel antara Macquarie University Australia dan Universitas Gadjah Mada. Sehingga disertasi Promovenda tulis dalam bahasa Inggris, demikian pula pada ujian-ujian sebelumnya juga menggunakan bahasa Inggris. Ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu, let me begin by introducing all examiners here. For that, I would like to deliver my warm regard, my warm welcome all examiners, and thank you for joining us here in the open doctoral exam for Promovenda Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi. May Allah bless you and shower you with blessing. In Rabbal Alamin. And first, I would like to introduce supervisor's team, Profesor Dr. Sigit Rianto and Dr. Zainal Arifin Mukhtar. Welcome to the event, and they have different expertise. Professor Sigit, the principal supervisor, has an expertise in international law, and Dr. Zainal Arifin Mukhtar is master in constitutional law. And I would like to continue with 3 internal examiners. Bu Sriwiyanti Ediono, Bapak Andi Omara PhD, Bapak Riko Andi Bowo. Welcome Bapak Ibu. And we also have different expertise. Ibu Sriwiyanti Ediono, we call her Bu Iki. He has an expertise in criminal law as well as human rights law and gender. While Pak Andi Omara is master on constitutional law, and Pak Riko is also has an expertise in administrative law. Last but not least, here is external examiner, Bapak Alfitri PhD. Welcome, Pak. Thank you for joining us here. And he is from IAIN Samarinda College of Islamic Studies. And he is a very well-known scholar in law and society as well as public law. And I'm myself, Dahliana Hassan, as a chairperson and from Tax Law Department. And it's all our introduction. Was one of our examiner here, Dr. Heribertus Jakatriana SHLLMMA, cannot be here, right? Okay, let me continue with Q&A session. I will to give first opportunity Professor Dr. Sigit Rianto as principal supervisor. Please, Prof. Sigit, can give a brief introduction about Promovenda and then continue with Q&A question. Prof. Sigit, time is yours.
Thank you, Vice Dean Dahliana, for allowing us to join this examination. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, with your permission, I have to introduce Promovenda today. Her name is Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi. Was born in Jakarta, 19 October 1988. Got education from Fakultas of Law, Gadjah Mada University in 2010, and then also Master of Art from the Faculty of Social Science, Gadjah Mada University 2012. Also, Master of Philosophy, Faculty of Law, University of Oslo, 2014, and just started this PhD program in the Faculty of Law, Gajah Mada University, in the framework of Kotutele program with Macquarie University, starting from 2018. She has been working for the Faculty of Law as lecturer since 2012 up to date, and also joining many research institutes, likewise Sardar Oda from 2009 to 2011. Also Norwegian Center for Human Rights, 2012 to 2014, and also Pusat Studi Sosial Asia Tenggara, 2014 and to 2017, and also a Center for Religious and Cross-Cultural Study from 2019 up to date. She has written many articles published in national and also international journal, and also this is my short introduction to Promovenda, Ms. Mahaarum. Let me begin with a question, Promovenda. Ibu Arum, are you ready to respond all of the question?
Yes.
Okay, good. I would like to ask you a very simple question, starting from your research, which your research is titled Religious Freedom and the Indonesian Constitution, a case study of the blasphemy law, marriage law, also civil administrative law. We understand that there are many regime administration has been in place in the Indonesian administration, starting from the Sukarno era, then Suharto era, and then with the reform era or era reformasi starting from 1998 up to date. Based on your research, could you highlight what is the most important finding concerning the religious freedom in the administration era Indonesia? Please.
Honorable Professor Dr. Sigianto S.A. Thank you for the question. I will try to answer. The overall argument of this thesis is that regulations of religious freedom has been contested by the Islamists and the nationalists through the lawmaking process, both in the legislature and the constitution. These theses have demonstrated the politics of religion making in Indonesia, started from the making of the Constitution back in 1905, the parliamentary and the executive at the new order, and up to the finding of my test in each of the era, that in all of the era, politics of religious always coloring the making of the law in three arenas. That is constitution, the work of the legislature, and also constitutional as the sole authoritative interpreter of the Constitution. So my finding would be legislature and constitutional are political negotiate. And here, I actually in this study use a disclaimer that I made for a clear conception of the term national and Islam. It is important to avoid misunderstanding of the. This is because throughout this thesis, I demonstrate how Islamic values and interests influence during the negotiation between lawmakers that consists of what I refer to as Islam. The term Islamist in study is not interchangeable. What it means by Islamists are those parties proposing the use of Islamic law under the Indonesian law, while the nationalists are those parties proposing of a more, in the sense, national Muslim who does not want to adopt under the.
Okay, now I move to my second question. Comparing these three period administration, could you highlight different and similarity if we analyze from the point of view the obstacle or challenge that has been dealt with by these three administration concerning the religious freedom, the point of view political and legal challenge in these three administration?
Thank you. Sukarno, our first president, was more prone to the idea of socialism and communism. Interestingly, he established the blasphemy law in 1960 was to protect Islam from the attack of liberal. However, interestingly, just 9 months after the establishment of the blasphemy law, communist tragedy, and then the regime was taken over by Suharto. And Suharto was a completely different man from Sukarno. He was more prone to. So the first case of blasphemy law back in 1968, Abe Hasim, he was prosecuted for being a communist. And then recently, the cases of blasphemy law are more prone to religious minorities. For example, the case of Ahok, that he was prosecuted for blasphemy. So if I should say the similarity between the regime interest of Islamic values that being protected by the regime. However, there are different enemies of Islam that being targeted by the regime. And it actually reflects political interests of the regime.
Okay, back to Budahliana.
Prof. Sigit, the next turn is Dr. Zainal Arifin Mukhtar as a co-supervisor of Promopenda to patient Promopenda. Times is yours, Pak.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Bu Dahliana. I will start my question in terms of very simple question. I'm pretty sure that everyone here already read your thesis, PhD, and then everybody here may already know comprehensively about your thesis. But maybe for the other, really in YouTube, the other viewers, maybe you have to a little bit explain more about the main idea in your this thesis. Yeah, as far as we know, your main problem actually try to portray the legal gap between protection of religious freedom in Indonesia, especially because several laws or several undang-undang are not in the line, are not in line with idea of religious freedom. So can you explain in what can you explain to all of us what the what your idea, yeah, related to what's the meaning of legal gap uh, in your thesis?
Honorable Dr. Zainal Arifin Mokhtar, SH, LLM. Thank you. I will try. Indonesia is a Muslim majority country. So the relationship between law and Islam and the parameters of religious are important. Religious freedom has been an issue of concern for religious of many decades and remains a topic of, religious tension has been coloring not only the private life of the city, but also comes to the public. As I mentioned, the case of Ahok was my call. But this case is just the tip of the iceberg. Both the Human Rights Watch report and Amnesty International report on Indonesia in 2020 have highlighted the widespread problem caused by the blasphemy. The report demonstrated that there is a concern that the blasphemy law interferes with constitutional guaranteed under the. As a result, numerous cases have been lodged before the Constitutional Court to test the Constitution. As a constitutional law scholar, I am curious to understand. Therefore, I want to examine the Indonesian legal framework of religious freedom under the Indonesian Constitution and its derivative law, including the constitutional interpretation of the religious freedom. Constitution is the highest law applicable. Therefore, any laws and regulations must conform. However, as you say, there is a legal gap in the protection of freedom because several laws, not just blasphemy, are not in line with the idea of religious freedom guarantees under the. Because of that, this thesis seeks to analyze how this law violates religious under the. Remembering the positions of the Constitutional Court as the authority of the Indonesia, and that the Indonesian Constitution embraces human rights, including religious freedom. After its amendment, there is a need for a richer as a counteracting. That is why I wrote.
Okay. I want to go to my second question. One of the most important you give to us is about legal gap. You already explained about that. Also, you already explained why it happened in our system. My second question actually. So, what the lesson learned can be taken by us, yeah, to provide the best protection to religious freedom in Indonesia. Okay, time is yours.
Is the regulations of religious freedom made by the Islamists and nationalists through the lawmakers, both in the legislature and the constitution. These theses have demonstrated the politics of religion making in Indonesia in the sense that Islamic values were negotiated and influenced. This process occurred in three different arenas: constitutional debate, lawmaking by parliament, and judicial review before the constitution. In the constitutional debate and the making of law by legislature and the executive, the politics of religion making is more obvious than that which occurred in the constitution. This is because politicians were explicitly delivering. In the constitutional court reasoning, judges were more subtle in showing that preference. However, an interesting legal fact found in this that is the use of Article 28J paragraph 2 for limiting including religious use. This includes the fact that Article 28J paragraph 2 mentions religious values as limiting clause for the manifestation. In practice, only certain religious values from source that being used in Islam. So it should be noted that there is an important different conception between absolute rights, Article 28I, paragraph 1, and limitations, Article 28G. Because a lot of people got this, including the Constitutional Court decision in the case of drug dealer. In the 2007 death penalty case, the court argued that all rights stated in the Chapter of Human Rights in the Constitution may be limited as that under Article 28G. The 2007 case affirms that there are no absolute rights in Indonesia. Therefore, the court justifies that Indonesia, although the right to life is listed as the absolute right along with the right to religion under Article 28I. Disregarding the 2007 case, in the ID card case in 2007, the court seems to heavily consider human rights by acknowledging the right to religion as an absolute right alongside other absolute rights mentioned under Article 28I, paragraph 1. I agree with the latter decisions in that the right to hold religion or the forum internum is one of the absolute rights stated under Article 2. They should not be confused with the right to manifest religion that alongside other manifestation rights may be strictly limited under Article 2.
Okay.
The,
You want to go through?
yeah, sorry. So
Okay.
this thesis found there is a trend when the Constitutional Court decide cases relating to the looking at the decisions from the blasphemy, marriage, and civil administration. The court seems to be more persistent to defend necessary blasphemy, moderate in responding the issue of marriage, and more sympathetic in the IT code. I suppose this is because blasphemy law protects it from being attacked or violated. There is a direct interest protection, protecting its privacy that if not being protected may be resulted in the marriage law cases. The court firmly holds Islamic values on interfaith marriage because Islam firmly says to allow interfaith marriage means the court will oppose. However, in polygamy and child pornography law case, the court were prone to criticism by limiting its application. It is also interesting that the court, in addition to using human rights, women and children's rights, to limit the applications of Islamic law under the also strengthened the position of the state law that has the authority to control the use of Islamic law. In the ID card case, the court was more sympathetic because the issue of recognizing other will not directly. Thus, there is no need.
Okay. I give back to you, Bu Dahliana. Thank you very much.
Pak Zainal, I will go to internal examiners. It's the turn of Bapak Andi Omara SH M.Phil International Law PhD. Time yours, Pak.
Mahaarum, can you hear my? Okay. So in your dissertations, you analyze the case of Adminduk Law Judicial Review. Do you see any relations between the court interpretations of 9 and the constitutional drafter when they formulate article in 1944?
Thank you, Honorable Mr. Andi Omara, and in law. I will try to. The wording of Article 79, paragraph 1 of the state based on the one and only is the state endorsed. This article set a law for It obliged the state to particular. To be more precise, this constitutional article closes the because the state has brought the idea of taking. However, the state also rejected the proposal. Thus, Indonesia is not an Islam. This is
So,
because
okay, okay. So, what I actually want to know about your thought is regarding whether the decisions of the court on Admin law concerning whether belief is actually different from religions or they actually part of the religion, are they differ or they have similar argument between the drafter of the constitutions and the constitutional justice?
so under the Indonesian Constitution, the provision on religion and belief can be found in the chapter on human rights and the chapter on religion. The chapter on human rights was added back in the 2000. The incorporations of human rights article in the amendment, one of the main. However, still under the Indonesian Constitution, religion and belief are also constructed in the chapter, and it was not amended. The wording of the article remained the same since its original creation in 19. Here, the words religion and belief are mentioned together in the same article in a single sentence using a conjunction and. It can be found in Article 20 Indonesian Constitution. The conjunction "and" in this article indicates that Indonesian law regards religion and belief in the equal position. However, in the making of the article, it was not as smooth. Zainal Bagir analyzing the dispute from the making of Article 29 show how the parties negotiate. An old documentary from the 1970s shows how the heated debate of the term religion reoccurred in the parliamentary AM. So, recalling Article 28E1 and 2 in the Human Rights chapter, and for comparison, the term religions and belief are also perceived to be given different legal positions. So while the Human Rights chapter was made during the Constitution Amendment in 2000, the chapter on religion in the Constitution was originally made in 1945 and has not been amended since. This means the Indonesian Constitution has set the term religion and belief as equal since the very beginning. Since 2000, the two terms are regarded differently under the Indonesian Constitution. The Indonesian Constitutional Court in the decision case 97 Civil Administrative Law made an interpretation of the Indonesian of the term. According to the court, the wording of the two terms need to be examined. After examining the context of the wording and historical background, the court stated that religion and belief should be seen as two. This has two legal consequences. First, that belief may exist without having it in a certain way. And two, that Constitution protects belief in the same way as my comment will be, in practice, the claim of monotheistic limits religious such as atheism or polytheism. The claim of official religion may result in discrimination against religion other than those recognized. Although the discrimination is conducted by the expert, the court's absence in addressing these two issues contributes to justify government's. This leads to my conclusion that there is a lack understanding of the concept of religion. But the government's lawmaker and the constitutional constructions of religion has contributed.
Okay. My final question. Based on your research, patients, how far actually religions play roles in constitutional court, specifically when we talk about blasphemy law. And at the same time, we also have to consider that the compositions of justices in the constitutional court is not uniform. There are also non-Muslim justice. You explain.
Thank you. Yes, on the blasphemy law case, there are numbers of blasphemy law cases lodged to the Constitution. However, I focus on three important cases: the 2009 case, 2012, and with the case in the 2009 being the most for the other. What important from the three decisions that the judges, of course, they have different interests, different background, but also there was a political pressure from Islamic organization inside and outside the court proceeding. Inside the court proceeding, there were numbers and a lot of Islamic organizations being the intervener of the case. And outside the court proceeding, there were also demonstrations and also pressure from using the media to the judges in deciding the case. Let me go into an interesting fact found on two judges. First one is Ibu Maria Farida. From the background, she was only in 2009 case, she was dismissed, while the other judges says that blasphemy should remain exit. She said, interestingly, in 2000 and 2006, she did not any. Another one is Hamdan Zulfa. Hamdan Zulfa was a member of the parliament of MPR during the amendment. And he was the member of an Islamic party that proposing the use ban of or the use of Islamic law, the obligation for Muslims. When he was the judge, he was then become a judge in the Constitutional Court and decide on the blasphemy to uphold. So here I see the background of the judges, even though not obvious compared to the one, but they are incorporating their interest or background when they make. And it is also aided by the pressure socially inside and outside the.
Okay. I just want to have my very quick comments. So I think it is also unique when we talk about blasphemy law in constitutional court, because the petitioners or some of the petitioners actually a very prominent Islamic figure, right? So I think that also a very unique fact when we talk about blasphemy law, because not only the court defend the Islamic value somehow, but those who actually contest the blasphemy law is also, some of them are actually a prominent figure of Islamic scholar as well. Okay, thank you very much. I give back to Ibu Dahliana.
And your question and comment, blasphemy law. And the next examiner is Bapak Riko Andi Wibowo, PhD. Times is yours, Pak.
Very much, Bu. Arum, first of all, I would like to congratulate because you have achieved age. I believe that have been struggling from time to time. So congratulations for that. You need to drink also beforehand?
Good,
If so,
sir.
you're okay. Yeah, as an administrative lawyer, I would like to focus on the issue of principle of proportionality that you mentioned on your thesis. Yeah, although you are referring to Robert Alexi, yeah, prominent constitutional lawyers. Yeah. To certain point, this principle also acknowledged and heavily exercised in administrative law context, especially the logic of principle of properness, dari good governance of good. So I would like to focus on that. You have explained thoroughly on your chapter 2, yeah. You have explained that this principle of proportionality can be divided into three sub principles: equitability, necessity, and proportionality. Narrow sense. You have also explained how certain sub-principles under the principle of proportionality should be adhered by the judges. By the judges. But you are explaining that in focusing on the terms of blasphemy law and marriage law. So I'm wondering whether you could share and elucidate, share your thoughts, how these principles, how this proportionality test should be exercised by the judges in terms of the cases on civil administrative law. I miss you.
Thank you, Honorable Mr. And the main focus, the main issue, the main. So there was a problem for religion or belief outside this official. So many people for 2000, they didn't have ID. Their religion was not recognized. In 2013, the government finally the holder of the to have a blank column in their ID card. They can, even though we don't. It was still perceived as a discrimination. So in 2016, court to review this in light of the court, interestingly, using the proportionality test to acknowledge other belief or religion. So that finally, the court says that the policy to have the religion column blank in the ID card is a violation of in the sense of discrimination. Because other religion can be stated, but the other religion that not be recognized. However, I would still criticize constitutional in this case, and later also the following up policy, because the constitutional court and the executive failed to recognize two issues. The first one is the mention of belief in one and only. That was the following up policy of the executive. Is still discriminated. Why? Because Islam, Christianity, other recognized religion can be mentioned, the name exactly. But the other religions and beliefs have to be uniformly called by this name, believe in one. They might have belief that is not in one and only camp, but they are uniformly have to.
Thank you very much, Mahaarum. Bu Dahliana, back to you.
Pak Riko, and now I will Vivianti Edionopi. Times is yours. Bu.
You, Bu Dahlia. First of all, I want to congratulate for Mahaarum for having open examinations today. I have to tell you that I enjoy reading the dissertation, while of course, in the same times, there are a lot of questions up. It means that your dissertation has interesting topic and discussions. So I want to only have several questions for you today. And it is actually as the continuing from the reviews or the others question. So with regard to your conclusion, I think it is very interesting, which you find there are the gradation or the various category of the decision made by the Constitutional Court. So there are several issues, but I just want to think to the issue of blasphemy law and marriage law. So from the blasphemy law, say that decision made by the court showing their persistence to defend the law on blasphemy, while for the marriage law, then it's actually they are quite moderate in order to support the ideas of the marriage law. So you analyze that the blasphemy law brings with the right to manifest in religion, but also the right of the minority to survive of the distinct religion group and their freedom of the speech and expression. So you are so strong in a way that you say that blasphemy law does not protect religion freedom. It protects religions, but not people. So in the other side, Constitutional Court make a decision with regard to marriage law that has a of polygamy, interfaith marriage, and child-born wedlock. And then I found for these three issues in one law, they also kind of argumentation. So my questions to you, can you conclude that the court has inconsistency in uphold freedom of religion, or no clear parameter how they consider the freedom of
Honorable Mrs. Rivianti, LLH for the yes, I will say in the constitutional deciding. However, if we look at the argument for the court actually, I would say, playing a politics of balance that accommodate other rights, demands, and all. But more importantly, the court also says the state law has to be over. So the court in this regard, with this different, actually make a trend or a concept that if or filter for Islamic law applicable. If the court think that Islamic law is not going to be a problem for Indonesia, they will use it. For example, in the case, but if the court thinks that the application of Islamic law will be costly other rights, for example, in child pornography, then the court will say, no, as a state, I can limit the application.
Thank you. I think it's very clear question. My second question is that refer back to the concept that you guys, the theory that you argue, the political interest actually influence the way how the court make the decision, right? And then there are two big political interests, that is the nationalists or the Islamists. I'm kind of question mark of the Islamists, but let you explain it later. But which one which one do you think is the most interesting to the lawmaking constitutional court? The nationalists or the Islamists?
Thank you for the question. Actually, there is no clear map for the constitutional court because the constitutional judges are changing. So if we can, although actually the chief of the constitutional court will play a lot in. So if we compare the decisions made under the constitutional court first regime and regime, I will say they will have a more nationalist approach, more academic approach. But if you look at, let's say, Mahfud MD, chief, there will be more political. I wouldn't say it's more into, because of course, the constitutional judges, there are 9 of this, and 3 of them selected by the, or 3 of them selected by the president, and 3 of them selected by the head of the parliament. Of course, the politics of political parties play a lot. So there will be balance, I think, but we cannot see it quantitatively. Interestingly, if we look at the blasphemy law by Ibu Maria, Christian, only female, she descended in 2009, but then she did not descend in 2012 and 17, although the case remains. So here I can see that there was a pressure, or perhaps Ibu Maria in 2012 and 17, think that there is no need, or there is no chance if she said if she delivered this opinion, it wouldn't.
So I just want to make a clarification. I think Pak Alfitri will ask you more. It is related to Islamic value or it is Islamist. So
Okay.
I just let it there because one more thing, where has to be about the decision made by the constitutional law, with regard to the child born out of wedlock, which the biological father has responsibility for the biological father. So they opposite to the decision by the constitutional court. Can you categorize the MUI as part of the Islamists?
Thank you, Ibu Sriwiyanti. Yes, sorry, I forgot to explain about that, and it actually related to Pak Andi Omar asked before on the term Islamism. Okay, so Islamist is a political term, meaning that people who want to propose the use of Islamic law. In my disclaimer, of it is not about Islamic because Islam is not homogeneous. Pak Andi also said previously that in blasphemy law cases, the petitioners, the applicants, were Islamic figure, and so on. But then in the other side of the courtroom, you also have these Islamic organizations claiming to be Islam as well, but they have different interpretation and different conceptions. So this is a constitutional law study. I'm not talking about, but what I want to see their aspiration. So I'm not going into claiming which one is the right Islam. But what I want to see is that these people, they use their claim in their aspiration.
That's my questions. I give it back to great answer, Bu.
Thank you for all your questions, and then I now go to Pak Alfi. Time is yours, Pak.
Okay, thank you Ibu Dahliana. Mbak Mahaarum, congratulations on your viva voce. As I mentioned in our close exam, I believe that your dissertation has an accessibility to be published by a reputable. However, before we get into that stage, there are still several long stages of revision and review that must reflecting on my personal experience in publishing, maintaining the consistency of the thesis statement and your highly emphasized in the final product of work. That being said, I would like to hear your explanation about how your main argument fits to the marriage law case, especially regarding the provision on polygamy or polygyny and the status out of wedlock. I asked this question because you wrote in your dissertation that the influence, this is your thesis statement, influence of Islamist politics in marriage lawmaking had created a legal gap between the protection of them and the potential for interference with the religious groups in Indonesia. To my knowledge, the subject matter of provision that allow polygyny and the status of children out of wedlock Asian marriage law is the protection of women and children's human rights, not the issue of religious freedom, in my opinion. Except for the judicial review related to the prohibition of interfaith marriage. This case is, yes, actually related to freedom of religion because the constitutional norm being tested in this case is about freedom of religion. Whereas in the judicial review of the polygamy article, one of the constitutional norms being tested in is freedom of religion, but not for the minority group, but freedom religion for supporters of the polygamous marriage who view polygamy as a form of worship. Since the marriage law limits polygamy, this law has limited their freedom, their opinion. Likewise, with the judicial review of the case of an out, no norms of religious freedom were tested in this. That's my first question. I would like to invite you to respond.
Honorable Mr. Alfie. Yes, polygamy. There are two conflicting rights. First one, the freedom to manifest of a Muslim man who want to observe his value in one hand, and in the other hand is the right of women and children. So the proportionality test by study shows that the court tried to build. So let's say in the case of polygamy with these two conflicting rights, the violations of women's rights will be light if polygamy. However, doing so will seriously violate to give a light obstruction and serious obstruction to other rights. So totally banning the law of balance in this case can be done, permitting polygamy under strictly. That is, provided that the woman and children rights must be satisfied to the husband. With such arrangement, the man's freedom to manifest might lead because the man needs to require before he can. And if he could not fulfill the requirement, he cannot do polygamy, and his freedom to manifest. In the other hand, strictly limiting polygamy means that the law permits, in this regard, the right of the woman may also be violated because the total amount of rights that she has will be reduced in marriage simply because she has to share with the other. So, in conclusion, for the polygamy, having both rights lightly obstructed or violated is more violent compared to having and one other right. There, I see the concern of the religious, the issue in the sense of the perform. The same case, the same argument on the child pornography case. Interestingly, as Yanti mentioned, these decisions by the Constitutional Court was responded by MUI by establishing fatwa right after the decision, saying that MUI reject the decisions because, according to MUI, this decision violates Islamic law. And if Islam, or sorry, Muslim, following the court, they will not be able to, so that the religious, according.
Yeah, I think you have addressed my question, but you need to make qualification in your analysis. Yeah, whose religious freedoms are you talking to in this case? Religious freedom. Supporting the provision of polygamy and
Yeah.
I think my final question, I just want to ask you to make a reflection. I hope you, I don't put you in the difficult situation with this, but because I love your analysis, yeah, doctrinal analysis, marriage law cases in the, I want you to reflect on the existence of our undang-undang perkawinan as a product of compromise between the state and Islamism. My question is whether its existence is a blessing or a disaster for a very is considering on the one hand your analysis, yeah, shows that this compromise had created legal gap on the one hand, but on the other hand, scholar in Islamic marriage law, I see that to some extent Indonesian marriage law has, you know, elevated the status of women and children in the family, limiting marriage age and limiting the application of polygamy. And my observation is based on several studies, for example, conducted by all of the impact of Indonesian marriage law to the status of. It is not perfect, but at that time, this is the best law product we can have today. The demand of Islamists of majority, and on the other hand, gender. I just want to ask your reflection. It's a difficult situation. Yes.
Thank you, Pak Alfie. Now, yes, I would not generalize that the marriage law is a total course or a total blast. As you say, of course, there are lots of benefits with the mix. I mean, comparing to the. However, I should also say there are still curses, particularly for religious minorities. For example, a lot of cases of unregistered marriage, which becomes a problem for they couldn't claim for the same case of polygamy. So what I want to say is that we still need to revise them because you know religious freedom or rights. There are rights, and it is stated in our Constitution. So we need to make sure that rights, it's not obligation. So religious freedom in the conceptions human rights law. In the conceptions of civil and political, the holder of the right need to be, and the state should not. So the marriage law, unfortunately, has crossed this and intervened in that. So I will not be that it is a problem if the marriage allowing people according, but it should not force other people.
How are we gonna do that? Yeah, but that's another topic, to be investigated next time. But congratulations on your dissertation, Ibu Bose, and I return to Ibu.
Thank you, Pak Alfred. Interesting question too. And my turn to give just one last question, Mahaarum from Movenda. Please provide me with a brief answer. Mahaarum, I already have read a statement that minorities are being unfairly targeted simply for exercising their basic constitutional right to religious liberty. So when we violate someone's religious freedom, everyone's liberty at stake. I would like you to correlate your niche of your research to that statement. Thank you.
Honorable Mrs. Liana Hassan, SHMPH. Thank you. Yes. When interestingly, the idea of religious guarantees everyone, no matter how as a even if we look at the construction of what's being protected, the person, not their religion. So what I want to say is that when we talk about religious blasphemy, I have an interest in Shia, Ahmadiyya. So Shia and Ahmadiyya was perceived by some Sunnis. But if we want to think deeper, isn't it also the other that what being done by must be blasphemy? So the state in responding to horizontal conflict need to be new. That I propose that I'm using, and I learned a lot from the liberal conception, but the liberal conception cannot be used directly into the, because we need to consider a lot of parts. However, I still believe they need to at least the interest of this, and state should not endorse particular that in fact will be violation of the human rights. The state needs to be and not.
Okay, thank you. The Q&A session is finished.
Sesi tanya jawab dan promosi doktor selesai. Untuk memberikan waktu tim penguji dalam menentukan hasil ujian, maka ketua tim penguji ujian promosi doktor.
Dan promosi doktor bagi Promovenda Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi M.Phil menyatakan kita.
Tim penguji mengadakan yudisium. Kemudian Ketua Tim Penguji, buka kembali ujian promosi doktor.
Ujian promosi doktor bagi Saudari Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi, SH, MA, M.Phil dinyatakan dibuka kembali.
Ketua Tim Penguji, dahulukan hasil ujian promosi doktor bagi dari Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi, HM.
Saudari Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi, SH, MA, M. Setelah tim penguji mendiskusikan dan mempertimbangkan hasil promosi saudara, maka dengan ini saudara dinyatakan lulus dengan nilai A. Congratulations, selamat.
Promotor menyampaikan kesan dan pesan. Pada yang terhormat, Profesor Doktor Sigit Rianto SH LLM, selaku promotor, silahkan.
Terima kasih, Mas. Assalamualaikum. That person, distinguished examiner, the member, family, friend, and fellow student, it is a great honor for me having the opportunity to speak to you this very important day. First, I should like to thank to the administration and the faculty member of the doctorate program, the Faculty of Law Gajah Mada University, for their hard work and dedication on our behalf. Ladies and gentlemen, eventually I'm happy to announce that we can have Dr. Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi complete her doctorate program from the Faculty of Law, Gajah Mada University. Would like to congratulate Dr. Mahaarum Kusuma family for her hard work and intensive study here at the Faculty of Law, Gajah Mada University. All of you can be very proud of her wonderful achievement. Wrote the dissertation titled Religious Freedom, the Indonesian Constitution, a study, blasphemy law, marriage law, and civil law administration. It's a very important, very contextual topic that has been written by Dr. For Dr. Mahaarum, this is not only the day we mark the end of your long academic journey, the doctorate program, Faculty of Law, Gajah Mada University, but also the day we can celebrate the end of a very stressful academic process marked with pandemic situation due to COVID-19. It was indeed a very strange situation. Have to spend our work together, all of you taking most academic work online, even if all of us live on campus or nearby. On a personal note, being the first promoter altogether, Dr. Jainal Arifin Mokhtar of the Satu Tele program in UGM and Macquarie University, I would like to honor both university and of course to all of the examiners, Dr. Dahliana, Dr. Andi Mara, Dr. Riko Andi Wibowo, Dr. Sriwiyanti, Dr. Heriberto Jakatriana, Dr. Helambang, and our external examiner, Dr. Alfitri from Banjarmasin. Without you, process would not have been possible. Thank you very much, all of the minor, for your kind assistance support. As the Dean of the Faculty of Law, Gajah Mada University, I am very proud to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, honestly, at the same time, I am very sorry that must have this graduation ceremony as a very skilled down person and in unusual situation, avoid infection without any guest and colleague as well as family member here. My speech and the ceremony are very symbolic of what all of you had to go through toward the end of the Dr. Mahaarum Pertiwi study at the doctorate program Gajah Mada University. Of course, to thank to the Almighty God that could gather here well and healthy, since there are millions of people in the world, including many in our country, who suffer from vicious. And please congratulations once again on this graduation. Good luck to all of you. God bless us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Ketua Tim Penguji untuk ujian promosi doktor bagi Doktor Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi M.A.M.
Promosi doktor ini, maka kami memberitahukan bahwa Doktor Mahaarum Kusuma Pertiwi SH MA M.Phil adalah doktor ke-236 yang lulus ujian dari Fakultas Hukum dan doktor ke-5189 yang lulus di Universitas Gajah Mada. Dengan mengucap syukur alhamdulillah, maka ujian promosi doktor ini dinyatakan
cara ujian promosi doktor bagi Doktor Mahaarum telah berakhir. Kami mengucapkan Bapak Ibu tamu yang berkenan dan promosi doktor pada kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dilanjut Bimo Doktor tim tetap mengaktif
Selamat ya, Harum.
Baik, Bapak Ibu, untuk foto sesi silahkan bersikap tegak. Saya akan mengambil beberapa foto. Pastikan wajah Bapak Ibu terlihat kamera. 1, 2, 3. Kan Bapak Ibu tersenyum. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu, foto sesi sudah selesai.
Terima kasih Bapak Ibu.
Selamat Mbak Arum.
Sukses ya Rum, selamat ya. Gitu. Selamat Bapak Ibu, sehat-sehat semua.
Oke, makasih
semua.
semuanya.
Semua sehat semua. Mari pamit.
Mari.